In today's video, I'm going to show you how to build your very own AI agent that is able to scrape data from YouTube, analyze it, and provide recommendations on what videos to generate, as well as also analyze the engagement ratings, how viral a video is likely to do, as well as be able to provide you with recommendations on videos you should create or that you could use for automations around content generation as well. And as ever, you'll be able to get access to all of the resources that we run through today. All you need to do is come across to school, which we've got in the link below, come across to Classroom, come across to AI Agent, and you'll be able to download the blueprint, come into a new workflow, come to the top right-hand side, and import the file. Whilst we're importing that, let's jump into a quick demo and see how it works. And then we'll know if we've got a high-performing video or not. So again, this is going through all of the different data that we've added in here. So in this case, we've got 151 videos that it's analyzing across a couple of different playlists as well if we wanted to, so that we know what the best performing videos are in our niche. So again, the more volume of data that you give it, the better the output's going to be. So for example, here we've now got the example around building AI agents, replying tasks, voice AI solutions, proven use cases, complete lead generation system. And if we come back into here, as we can see, we've now got those 3 videos ready to go. And that's how easy it is to go through it with specific information on your niche and be able to get the best output for you to generate videos in the future. So we'll be able to import the blueprint, and then it will load up all automatically for us. And again, all of the resources are in the link below if you want to get access to this. But as mentioned, we're going to run through how to build this from scratch together today. So let's get rid of that. And we're going to go from the start, which is going to be around analyzing the playlist first. And how are we going to do that? Well, the first step we're going to have here is going to be a form. So we're going to come across and we're going to do on form submission. We're going to give this a title of playlist ID. We'll give it description. There we go. So we need to give it the ID field. So playlist ID is going to come through as a text field. We don't need to have a placeholder in there. We do need to be a required field. We can go through and add different forms or different elements if we wanted to. And we're going to go through and just make sure that we respond once it's done a bit later on. So you'll get this URL that appears. So we want to copy that and paste in here, because then what we're going to be able to do is leverage this as we go through and do our testing, or conversely, if you press test step, it will open it up for you automatically as well. So we're going to have that in the background just in case. So now if we come through here and we just refresh our page, we'll say test. And what we can do is come back into our environment. And as we can see, we've got test that comes through. So great, that's all working exactly the way we need it to. So we'll bring it down here into analyze playlists. The next stage we're going to be doing is around Airtable. So we'll come into Airtable. And what we're going to look for is search for records, because this is where we're going to go through and validate if we've got the correct information or not, if we've already captured that data in the past, so we don't go through and use up the executions if we don't need to. So to do that, we need to come down. We're going to create new credential. We're going to need an access token. Now to do that, we want to come into our environment. So as you can see here, this is an Airtable. Again, links below if you want to get access to this. What we're doing is going to be using all of the output information in 3 main tables. So we're going to have the analyzing of the playlist information. We're going to have all of the different videos in here. We'll be able to do the watch video as well as see how many days since it was published. We can see the engagement rate, if it was low, medium or high. We can see the performance of the video as well as like count, all of this different information so that we can go through and use it as we want, as well as the channels that we've scraped so that we'll be able to use this in the future. So we'll just get rid of that for our testing, and we'll be able to store the data a bit later on if we come up with some ideas. So first things first, what we want to do is come up to the top. We want to come down to build hub. We're going to come and create an access token. So we'll call this YouTube automation demo. We're going to add all of the scopes in here, so it's got access to everything and it won't throw any issues a bit later on. So we'll come through, give it all of the data that it needs. There we go. We've added our base in there already. So now we can do create a token, and we'll get our personal access token in there, which we'll be able to use a bit later on. One thing to note is when you're going through and using this data, if you're doing it with multiple different tables that you're using for your own instance, have a look at doing one token for everything and giving it access to all of the different bases versus having lots of tokens. It just works a bit better for managing your environment. So if we come back in here, we'll paste and we'll just rename this to YouTube demo analysis. We'll do save, and then what it should do is go green for us. There we go. So we're all successfully connected. And now what we can do is go through, search for a record. We're going to come down to our base. We're going to choose YouTube automation, and we're going to choose our analyzing playlists. And again, what we've done is, because if we come back we've got our specific one that we've already generated. So this is the base at the top here, and then we've got our specific tables. It's going to be able to go through and analyze that. So what do we need to do as a filter? Well, in here, we're going to need our playlist ID. And the reason we know it's our playlist ID is because if we come into here, we've got playlist ID as the title here. So we're going to be using that in here. We're going to do equals. And then what we need is this information here, this playlist ID that's been passed across. We're basically going to need to test if that already exists in the database. So we're going to do that. We're going to say return 1, or you can do return all. It depends on what you prefer. And you can choose the output fields if you want. So all of the information, if it does exist or if it doesn't exist. What we're going to do though is get rid of that. We're going to come across to settings and we're going to do always output data. So now if I come through and do test, we'll get an empty output because it's not found any of the information, or it looks like it's the playlist ID. So we just need to come through and change that. So it's playlist ID with a space. So now if we see we're getting no outputs come through, but actually we know that there is data in there that we can go through and test. So for example, if we get one of the playlist IDs that already exists, we can come in here, we can do copy. We'll come through to our test step again. So we'll do test step. We can put our playlist ID in there. We'll send that off. And what you can see here is if we now do the test with the new data, what we can see is we're retrieving that data. So actually we know that playlist exists in our database. And that's where we're just going to go through and use an if statement next, because what we don't want to do is add any more data if it already exists and use up tokens if we need it. So what we're going to say is if the Airtable ID exists, then we're going to have the two outputs of true or false. So if it does exist, what we're going to do? If it doesn't exist, let's go through and add it into our database. So I'm not going to do anything for the true value for today. So for example, if we tested this, we would see that it comes out as true because something does exist there. So maybe you could have a Telegram message, a Slack message, anything like that notifies you that this data has already been captured. So we don't need to do it in this instance. Today, we're going to be running through what if it doesn't exist, we need to go through and add it into our database. So that's where the next stage, we're going to get into the good part, which is YouTube and how we use YouTube. We're going to do get a playlist. There we go. But how are we going to get our YouTube to work? Well, we're going to need to come down to create new credential. We're going to need a client ID and a client secret. So to do that, you want to come into your Google Cloud Console. I'll include some links below for how to get access to it. You want to come to the top left. We're going to need to do new project. We're going to give it a name. So we'll do huge automation demo. We'll do create. What it will do is it will take a little while for it to spin up and then we'll be able to get access to it. So now we can select project. And as you can see here, it's now come through and we're able to use it. We want to go into APIs and services first. Now there's a couple of different things we need to do. So first things first, we're going to come and enable some IDs. So we'll do YouTube. We'll come through to YouTube data. This is the main one that you're going to be using. I'm going to go through and just add the rest just in case we wanted to use this a bit later on. We'd already be authenticated using this different project that we're setting up today. So we'll wait for this to come back as authenticated. It looks like it just did. There we go. So now we've got the ability to disable the API. We're going to come back across here and do YouTube again. We'll search. I'm just going to go through and add these two as well. So I'll see you after that. So there we go. Both of those have been enabled. We're going to come down to the left-hand side here where we've got credentials. We're going to do create a new credential. We want an OAuth client ID. We're going to click on configure consent screen. We're going to do get started. We're going to give it an app name. So we're going to call it YouTube Auto Demo. We're going to add our email address in there. We'll do next. We're going to call it external. We're going to add in our email address again. We'll do OK. We'll do next. We'll do finish, continue, and create. This is going to be the first part. We're going to go through and need to make a web application as well as add our test user in a minute. So that's why now we can go through and create our OAuth client. We'll come down to web application. We're going to call this YouTube demo. We need to add in our redirect URI. So to do that, we're going to come back into here. We'll copy this one that we have been given from N8N directly. We'll come back into our cloud environment. We're going to come down here. We'll paste that in there. We'll do create. We'll need to go through and add in our test users. So now we've got our client ID and our client secret generated, which is great. That's what we're going to need to add in a little bit. To do that, we need to add in our audience. We're going to come down to test users. We're going to add our email address in there. It's really key to make sure that the email address that you add in there is the one you're going to be using, because only that account will have the permissions to go through and do the testing, because we've said it's a testing app. So only certain people have access to it. We can now come back into our environment, so Google Cloud. We'll come back into APIs and services, credentials, and we'll go back into YouTube demo. We're going to copy this key, the client ID. We'll paste that in there. We'll come back into our environment, copy this secret as well. We'll copy and paste in there. Now we can do sign in with Google. Again, that's where, because of the email address you're using, you're going to only be able to use that one. As you can see there, it's going to have access to lots of different information. You'll get success. Again, if you don't have success, that's probably because of the email that you're using is not correct. And we'll just rename this to our demo account so we can delete it a bit later on. We'll do save. It's all gone green, so we know we're all good to go. And now we've got the ability to interact with it. So where do we get the playlist ID from? Well, we're going to need to give it a test step. So we're going to need to give it a playlist ID. So what we'll do is we'll come back to the start. As you can see here, we'll do test step, or actually we can just pin the data in there for now. So we'll come into pin. I'm going to go on to Liam Otley's channel, and then he's got one which is just around building AI agency for success. If we open that in a new tab, what we'll be able to do is get the playlist ID, which is here. We'll copy this and paste it into our form. So now we'll be able to use that as hard-coded data to go through and do some testing. So now if we do test step, what we should see is that it comes back and it's got 9 videos in the playlist that we'll be able to watch. So if we come in here, as you can see, 9 different videos. So as we can see, if we open this up and we get rid of hold, we'll pull across the playlist ID because it doesn't exist. So we'll do test step. And now as you can see here, we've got the output and it's got all of the different information around that playlist. So what we're going to do next is Airtable. We're going to do create a record. We've already got our authentication from earlier. We're going to come down and choose our base. So in this case, we'll do YouTube automation. We'll come down to analyzing playlists. And now we're going to go through and map it manually, but you can do automatic if you want. I'm just going to do it manual because I prefer that way. So we're going to put across our playlist ID. We've now got all the data on the left-hand side around that playlist. So for example, the name of the playlist, the description of the playlist, we've got the number of videos. So if I just condense that down, we can do item count. We've got the channel. So this again would be channel title is Liam Otley. We've then got the channel ID. So that would be channel ID that we've got here. And we can add in a status if we want to, but what we should see now is if we test it, we'll be able to add it into our environment. So what we should see at the bottom here any second. So there we go. Building an AI agency. We've now got all of that information that we'll be able to go through and use if we want to. So we'll come back into our environment. That's all good to go now for adding a playlist. Now what we need to go through and do is get all of the information about those videos. So we'll come across, we'll do YouTube, we'll do get all playlist items. So get many playlist items. There we go. We've already got our authentication from a bit earlier on. We're going to be able to add in our demo account. So we'll be able to do this. We're going to change this to expression because we're going to be passing it across dynamically. So there's 2 ways of doing this. You can either use the playlist ID from our Airtable that we've stored, or you'll be able to use the playlist ID from our YouTube a bit earlier on. This is going to return all of the information that we've been able to capture, but if you only wanted certain amounts, you could do that as well. We're going to say return also, no matter how many videos are there, we're going to be able to return it. So we'll do test step. And now what we should be able to do is, as you can see here, we've now got 9 items, all about the information to do with the videos in that playlist. So if we close this down, we'll rename this to get videos. Now what we're going to do is go through and we're going to analyze each of those videos. So we're going to come down to YouTube. We're going to do get a video. So there we go, get a video. We need the video ID. So what we'll be able to do is, as we've got 9 different items, it's going to go through, iterate through and analyze each one. So we'll close this down. What we're looking for is the video ID. So there we go, video ID. Again, if we were to come into our actual test space here, and we'll just come in here, what we'll do is just pause this video so it doesn't so it doesn't play anything. What we'll be able to see is that's exactly the same as that video ID there. So if we were to get rid of that, for example, and then just enter it, it would play exactly the same video, just not part of the playlist. So that's how you'll be able to find it on your own. So what we can do now is it's going to return all of the different fields so that we can go through and store that. We're going to do test step. So there we go. We've now got 9 outputs with lots more information about that video, all the different tags that's associated with it. We've got all of the information, the duration, all of this sort of stuff, which is really useful for us to go through and analyze what are the better performing videos. So we can call this get video details. There we go. Now what we're going to go through and do is store each of these 9 videos into our table. So we're going to come across, we'll do Airtable, we're going to do create a record, We're going to do our bases, the automations, and we're going to go through and store this in our analyzing videos element. We're going to use manual for storing it. We're going to go through and do the video title. We've got the video ID, which is a bit earlier. The video URL. What we need to do here is change it to expression. We need to paste in the first part here. So if I just open this up, we need HTTP, YouTube, watch, and then we're going to go through and add the ID after that. What that will enable us to do is, as you can see here, we can then copy that, paste into a new browser. If we send that off, it should return that video. So that's exactly what we want. And that's just how we're going to be able to recall it as we need it. We'll close that down. Now, at the moment, we can't go through it and actually use a transcriber or anything on YouTube. It's against their terms of services. So I'm really keen to find a platform that will enable us to go through and get the transcript. We could do some analysis on it. So we could go through and put out some maybe scripting or anything like that we could do in the future. Associated playlist, again, what we can do is come back down to the start and we can use the one from a bit earlier, or if we come a bit further up, what we do have is the playlist ID in our Airtable. So if we come one step further back, there we go, playlist ID, we can do that in there. Coming back to the video, what we want to do is the video description. So we'll add that in there. We can now add in the thumbnail. So if we come a bit further down, we've got thumbnail 1, thumbnail 2, and thumbnail 3. Again, you can store more or less depending on what you want. We're going to come back through. We're going to look for the channel title. So that's going to be our channel name. The tags, we're going to need to do some trickery in a second. So we'll come back to that. We've got published at, so we can come a bit further down and we can find it right at the bottom from memory, or is it right at the top? There we go, published at. So we can add that in there. Duration, we're going to need to do some trickery. So we'll come back through and we'll get the number of views. So we'll come down here. We've got view count. There we go. We've got like count, and we've got the comments in there as well. So we'll be able to do some analysis on that. But for now, what we'll be able to do is add in our duration. So we'll come back through and do duration. We're going to do some formatting to get rid of this, as well as the channel ID. There we go. And the tags. Now for the tags, as you can see, we've got an array that's coming through here. So what we're going to need to be able to do is we're going to need to come to the end and we're going to do join, because then we'll be able to use all of that information. So what we'll be able to do now is store all of those YouTube videos. So we'll just rename this. There we go. And now we're going to go through and do aggregate, because we're going to end up with lots of different videos. So we want to make sure that we're doing this all individual items, all into a single list, so that we can go through and use that. And then what we're going to do is we'll come through and we'll do, if we're going to need to do the channel ID. So if I just do test step, what you should do is, looks like there was an issue to the way that it's structured. So what we need to do is we need to find duration. There we go. And then what we're going to do is just paste in our formula so that we can use that. So what this is basically going to do is reformat it from the 8601 datetime format that we have previously into the duration in minutes, so that we'll be able to store that. So now if we do test step, it should go through and execute it fine. And then if we come down to the bottom, what we should see is all of the information, there we go, being added in so that we can see the duration of each video in minutes. So now we'll be able to use that in the future. So we can come through, and what we can do is test this. So we'll aggregate it, and then we're going to do an if statement, but we haven't got anything in there at the moment. So what we need to do now is we need to go through and we need to Airtable. We need to search for records. We're going to need to find if we've got channel ID. So we'll do channel name, and then we're going to add the field in there. So we'll do channel title and then test that. So now if we do test step, it should go through and find it. It looks like, okay, because it's just names. So we'll just do names. This is going to be the name of the channel. We'll go through and then we find something. So what we want to do is an if statement, and then we'll say if this Airtable ID exists, we're going to do one thing. If it doesn't exist, we're going to do another thing. So if it does exist, we're going to go through and do one part. If it doesn't exist, we're going to do YouTube. We're going to do get channel details. So come down here, we'll do get a channel. There we go. Channel ID, we're going to add that in there. So to do that, we just need to test this step. There we go. So if we come back in here, oh, it looks like it's got no data. We'll just change this to always output data. So it's going to need a channel ID that it's not had before. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll just change this quickly just so we can get the test step done. So we'll do test step. So now what it will do is it will output it at the bottom. So what we'll be able to use is the channel ID. So if we come a bit further down, looking for ID, we'll do channel ID. So there we go. We've got video details, so we can add that in there, or let's get rid of that actually. We'll use some of the playlist data ones. We'll do test steps. So now what we'll be able to see is that we can retrieve all of the information around that channel, which is great. That's exactly what we need. And then we can do Airtable. We can do create a record. We're going to use our Airtable base, but we're going to use our channels instead. There we go. We'll add in our channels and we're going to go through and map it manually. So again, we've got our title here. We've got the description of that channel. We've got some of the keywords that are associated with it. So if we come a bit further down, we've got keywords. We've got the total view count. So we'll come a bit further up. There we go. View count. Subscriber count, we've got video count, we can do video count, so we'll pull that across. The banner image, maybe we want to assess that, so we can do that. Custom URI, we can come a bit further up. And then what we should have at the top here is custom URI, and we've got the country as well, so if we scroll a bit further down, there we go, we can add that in there. And now what we'll be able to do is add this into our account. So again, if we come back across to our data, we've got one for Liam at the moment. We'll test step, and then what it should go through and add is another one. So as you can see there, we've got all of the information that we need. So we can get rid of that. That's going to be storing all of the different channels. There we go. So now we can store all of the channel data, but maybe we only want to add a video. Well, that's where we're going to go through that next step quickly here. And what we'll be able to do is go through and store specific ones. So again, we're going to come through, we're going to do right click, add node. We'll do add another trigger. We'll come down to on form submission. So we'll give this a name of video ID. We're going to say video ID analysis. Again, we'll have our URL here. So we'll click on this, open it up in a new tab. So we're able to use this. So what we can do is come back in here. We don't need authentication. We're going to be using this as is. We can come into here. We can change this to video submission. We're going to come through and do Airtable, and then we're going to search for the records again, because what we don't want to do is add it if it already exists. So we'll do automating YouTube. We're going to do analyzing videos. What we need now is the filter. So we'll do video ID. Then we're going to do equals, and then we'll do a step in here. So what we need to do is test the step first. So we'll do test step. We're going to need to add a video ID in here. So for example, this is a video ID from that one that we were using a bit earlier. We can come into our submission, put that in there. And now we can go through as search for the records. Now if we do test step, what we should be able to find is output data if it does exist. But again, we've not gone through and added all of those videos from a bit earlier, and we've not specified the filter down here correctly. So we get rid of that. We'll add that in there. We'll do test step, and now we should go through and identify that we've already captured that video. So what we would want to do is add an if statement in here, because if it's already existed, we don't want to go through and actually add it again. So we'll say if it exists, we'll go off and do something else, maybe notify the user. If it doesn't exist, let's go through it and add it into our database. So the next thing we'll do false, we'll do YouTube again. We're going to do video. We'll do get a video. Now what we'll be able to do is get the video ID. So if we do the test step before, or sorry, we'll need to make sure that we do test step, but it's come out as true. So we're going to need to add in a video that doesn't exist. So for example, here, I've just got one for Blackadder, which is a very funny old English TV show that probably would not be allowed to be made today. If we come through, we'll do test workflow. So we just need to add in a hold in here for now. We'll do hold, and then we'll do test steps. So we'll go through and add our video ID in there for now. So what we should be able to do is go through, and it looks like it's already in there. So is that because I forgot to delete it from earlier? Yep, there we go. So we'll just get rid of that. So now if we come back and we'll give it another test. So we'll just get rid of these forms. We'll come back into our environment. We'll do test step. We'll add in our video ID. There we go. So now it should go through and analyze that it doesn't exist. So now if we do test step, it should come through. And there we go. We'll get all of the video IDs. So for example, here, we can now change this video ID to that one that was submitted. And if we do the test step, as you can see here, it's now got all of the information that goes through. It looks like this has been viewed over 3 million times, almost 4 million times. So a very popular video. We can say get video details. There we go. So now we can store it. So we'll do Airtable again. We'll do Airtable, create a record. Now what we're going to do is our Airtable database for YouTube, and we're going to go through and store it in the videos instead this time. So we'll just connect that up. So there we go, analyzing videos. We're going to map it manually. So again, we've got the title, we've got the video ID from a bit earlier, the watch URL. Again, we're going to be adding that in there as an expression, because we're going to be passing across the ID from a bit earlier, so we can get rid of that, and we can do ID. We're not going to have an associated playlist for this one, but if it does mention it, we would be able to use it. It doesn't look like they've got one mentioned in here. No. Okay, so we'll leave that blank. Video description. We'll pull that across from description. The like count, so again, we can search for like. We'll pass that across. We'll change that to view. We'll pass view across. And we'll do comment. There we go, comment count. Duration, we're going to need to go through and change this to expression as we did a bit earlier. And then what we're going to need is the content details. So if we do duration, there we go. So we can delete this and we'll pass it across again just so that it's all good and you can see exactly how it works. We can say published at, we can say the channel name. So if we come a bit further down, there we go. We've got all of the information. So let's just search for a channel. There we go, channel title. We've got the channel ID. We've got tags. So again, we'll need to go through and add in our .join afterwards. .join, brackets, and then brackets. And we need a comma in there with a space. There we go. So now we can go through and do the thumbnails. So we'll get rid of that and do thumbnails. So we can just add a couple of different ones that they've got in there ready to go. And we're going to leave the status as blank, so we're not going to use that. But now if we do test step, what we should get is that video being stored. So if we come down the bottom here, there we go. We've now got Blackadder being used a bit further down. So again, that's how we're able to analyze and dynamically add some of the videos as well. So we're almost done, and then we'll go through and show you the agent and how you're able to interact with this. We'll do store video. We'll be able to do Airtable, and then we're just going to search for that as well. So we'll do search records. We're going to look for our channels, automation, and then channel. There we go. And then what we're going to do is name again equals, and then we're going to need to add in our channel name from a bit earlier. So we'll pop this into an expression. So we'll change that and then do expression. And then what we'll do is pass across the channels. So again, search for a channel, and then we've got channel name. There we go. So we can add that in there. So now, for example, one of the things I love about N8N is it will show you what you would see on the right-hand side there. We're going to do return all. So now what we should see is there's no output. So we can do always output. There's nothing in there at the moment because we've not added this video or this channel in the past. So we can do check channel, and now we can do that if statement. And if it does exist, so for example here, we can do if json.id, because we'll do expression, we'll do string exists. We're going to go through one way. If it doesn't exist, we're going to come through the bottom. We can come through, we can do YouTube. We're going to go through and get a channel. We're going to pass the channel ID across. So we'll need to search for channel and then channel ID. There we go. So now if we do test step, we'll get all of the information back about the channel. So now we can go through and store the channel. So if we do Airtable, come through and do create a record. We'll go through and just add in our specific ones. So automating YouTube, we'll do channels. We're going to map it all manually. So now we can pass it across. So now we've got the title, we've got the description, we've got some of the keywords. We're a bit further down. So where are they? There we go, keywords. We've got a view count, so we can come a bit further up. There's view count there. We've got subscriber count. We've got video count, so we can add that in there as well. We've got banner images, so we can add that in there. The URI, if we come a bit further up, we should see it with the top. So there we go, custom URI. We can add that across. And the country, we can come a bit further down and we can pull that across. It doesn't look like this one has a country, so we won't add that in there. So what we can do now is test step. And then if we come back into our environment, come back across to channels, we should have that in there as well. So now it's all good to go. So if you're trying to come up with some video ideas, now we've got all of that base data to test against. So what we're going to do is go in and add our AI agent. So we're going to come to the right, do add nodes. We'll do chat trigger. We'll add that in there. We're going to make sure that we can access it. We're going to add in our AI agent. So we're going to come down to advanced AI agent. We're then going to go through and give it some information. The chat model, we're going to use OpenRouter in this case. If you've not used OpenRouter before, we're going to need to come down, create a new credential. We need our API key. So we'll come across to our account. We'll do keys. I love OpenRouter because they've got so many different LLMs in there, which we'll show you in a second. We'll do YouTube, we'll do create. Now we can copy this. We'll copy this token across, this API key. We'll paste in there. We should go to YouTube demo. And then what we do is if we press save, it should go green and we'll be able to use it. But now what we can do is we've got all of these different LLMs that we can work with. So if you want something that's quite cost efficient, you could use DeepSeek. If you want something that sounds really good for the copywriting, I recommend Claude. So for example, here, we could go through and use Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And now that will be able to enable us to have our AI brain to go through and get a response. We're going to use our chat memory so we can remember some of the previous messages. So again, if you want more than 5, you just need to increase that number. So we'll just add that in there. We'll rename it to chat history. And then we need to give it at least 2 tools. So in this case, we're going to do Airtable tool. We've already got the authentication from earlier. What we're going to be able to do is search records. We're going to come down YouTube and we're going to add in our videos. We're not going to add in a formula, but you could do the function around from AI. So AI would specify if you want. We're going to specify the output fields because it doesn't need everything. Maybe it just needs the video title. We've got some of the information around days since published, views per day, like ratio, engagement rate. All of these ones that you're looking at here, what we can actually do is we've got a specified formula in Airtable, which I'll show you in a second, which will enable us to get those responses back. So as we can see there, we've added a few different parts in there. So this will be able to search our data. And if we come through here, we'll do Airtable again, Airtable tool. We're going to be able to create a record. So maybe we want to store some video ideas that we generate. We can do automation. We can do video ideas. And we're going to get from AI to do that. So we'll do expression. We can do some brackets. We can do $ from AI. We can enter that in there. But I've got one that's already generated, so we'll just paste it in there. So what we're saying is the title, that's what we're going to add in. So if we come into our database, video ideas, you can see here we've got title. We're going to come back across. We're asking for it to generate a concise, catchy title for YouTube and in a string format. We'll go through and add the same for description. There we go. We'll add that in there and do an expression. So as you can see, basically just specify that it needs to go through and generate a description for that YouTube video in a string format so we can go and do it nice and easy. And we'll say the status is to do. So now what we've got the ability to do is based on all of the best performing videos from channels. So as we come across, we can do analyze video. We can see the number of likes that they have. We can see the duration of the video so we know how long it should go for. We can come across to the left-hand side. We can see what was viral performing, what wasn't performing, how many days, views per day. So think about your other platforms like VidIQ, which are helping you generate some of the best data that you can get around YouTube videos or trying to come up with YouTube ideas. This will help you do it automatically and be able to store all of that data. So we can come through and we'll just name this to store video ideas. So now based on all of the data that we've inputted, so again, you can come through and add as many different videos as you want in here. You can analyze as many playlists as you want, as many channels. So if you've got a real niche that you're working in, you'll be able to do that. We can come through and do chat. We can say, I want a high performing video. What do you recommend? We can send that off. And then what it will be able to do is chat with the data that we've got and provide that response back. Now, I've just remembered we need to go through and add our prompt in there for the AI agent as well. So we'll just wait for this to complete. It looks like it's going through and trying to give us a really good response based on all of the information we've got available. Again, there's quite a lot of information there. So it's going to go through and have to analyze each one. So again, think about some of the filtering when you develop it yourself. If you want it to be from AI, filter on specific ones, most applicable ones. If you've got a topic, or if you're happy for it to retrieve everything, use that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into our agent, add an option. We're going to add a message in here. So if we do expressions, we'll come out into here. So we basically said, again, you can screenshot this or all of the resources in the link below if you want to get direct access to it. We've basically said it's an assistant for growing a YouTube channel. It's got access to databases. We want to identify high-performing videos, the patterns behind it, suggest some video ideas so that we can go through and store them as well. And on the right-hand side here, you'll see the output that we got. So if I just pull this up, we can see that we've got information around what it wants to do, around agency strategies, generating some information. And it looks like it added one to our database already. So if we come through, we've got one there which we could use. Or if we come back through and say, I want a video on how to start an AI agency, how do I do it to perform best? We can send that off. And then what it will be able to do is go through and analyze the data that we've got access to and provide that response back. So now if we come through, it should tell us. We can also chat with the data as well. So we could say, what is the average views per day? We'll wait for that to come back just from the last response, just to make sure that we're able to use that. Again, because we're going through so much data, that's why it's trying to get that response. But this can be incredibly cost effective against some of the other platforms you've got out there. Again, I would love to expand this in the future to be able to analyze the transcripts automatically, as well as be able to generate thumbnails, all of that sort of stuff natively. So stay tuned for that. We're going to come a bit in the future. So it looks like it's generated an example there, and it's come up with a few examples. So what we'll be able to do is also say what is the average views per day. So it will go off, will analyze this information for us, and then we'll know if we've got a high performing video or not. So again, this is going through all of the different data that we've added in here. So in this case, we've got 151 videos that it's analyzing across a couple of different playlists as well, if we wanted to, so that we know what the best performing videos are in our niche. So again, the more volume of data that you give it, the better the output's going to be for some of the information. Again, you can use RAG as well if you wanted to use a vector database around storing some of the information in your niche as well. But this is going to be the best way to get some specific insights on each video that's coming out the back. So there we go in the background, it's going through and it's adding some video ideas. So if we come across, as you can see there, we've got 2 that have been added in. So let's just do created, and then we'll do created time so that we can see which one is being added in automatically. We'll do European for the daytime format. So as you can see here, they're going through and being added automatically, because in the prompt that we gave it, we said, please generate between 3 and 5 example outputs. Again, this is being a little bit slower because we're using OpenRouter. If you use something like OpenAI natively, or if you use Claude directly as well, you'd be able to get it a little bit quicker. Just depends on what you preferred. So for example, here we've now got the example around building AI agents, replying tasks, voice AI solutions, proven use cases, complete lead generation system. And if we come back into here, as we can see, we've now got those 3 videos ready to go. And that's how easy it is to go through it with specific information on your niche and be able to get the best output for you to generate videos in the future. All of the resources in the link below. I hope you found this video useful. Stay tuned for more around AI agents, and have a great day.